If you guys haven't been following, we are building a 2025 version of a 1941 Willys MB. In today's video, we're gonna add 7 World War II era decals onto our 2025 Wrangler and tell you exactly what they mean. Today's video is probably one of the most fun that we've had installing decals or installing things onto this Jeep. We just freshly installed the fenders, the bumpers, got everything bolted back together, and the one biggest thing that was missing, or the few of them, was the decals that really had important features to them. Now you can see, I'm not gonna say all of our decals have important features, especially on this build. We've got Little Lulu on the back, Rough Rider, Toots, a lot of those decals that we've been putting sporadically on the Jeep throughout the build. But in today's video, it was time to put on the big ones. Now, a little bit history on this type of build. I want to give a huge props to Jeep for actually redoing the decals on their 41 edition to be flat gray, which is very much like Anvil. We did not want to go with that color, and we wanted to make them white just because they popped a little bit more. And anytime you see a World War II Jeep on a photo, they're in white. We also wanted to take some time to make these historically accurate as much as we could without actually pulling out the spray paint and the stencils and spraying it all onto our brand new Wrangler. We could have done it on the bumpers, but we did order these as decals. I wanted to give a shout out to militarystencils.com because they are who provided all the decals for this build. And when I say provided, they didn't send them for free. I went onto their website, chose everything, ordered everything, and got about $200 worth of decals shipped to our door. Very old school site, but they know their stuff. And if you guys are curious where we got any of this, we will leave a link down below. Not sponsored at all. The guy's been doing it since 1972, and it's really, really awesome. So the first decal up to bat, arguably one of the most iconic for an original World War II Jeep, was the Hood Star. Now, these Hood Stars would have come in 2 different styles, just the standard star and then the Invasion Star, which you are gonna see install on our Jeep. And originally, it's funny because we actually had the manual out there, and the original width of the entire Wrangler is 46 inches, or the Willys MB. So we really had to do some playing around to make sure that this star looked good, but then also kind of give it our own little bit of a twist and center it in the hood, but also then center it in that hood bump that's on the Sport. On the original Willys MB, there wasn't any sort of extra bumps. It was just a flat hood. And there are specs on there, like it said how far to go away from the windshield. I want to say it was like 15 to 20 inches. And from our windshield to that, it was like just the start of the hood. So we had to center this out. And what we actually did too, before we installed it, to make it a bit of a cleaner install, we dropped the inside of the hood insulation and then also unbolted and removed the disconnects for the windshield washer fluid up on the hood. So we pulled both of those off, our hydro dipped pieces, we pulled both of those off. That way when we laid this down, no matter where we put it, we could put those over top of it, and Jordan wouldn't have to cut around it, because cutting around decals just, it doesn't look good, it doesn't look professional. So we got a spot on there and decided to put it on. I'm not an expert in putting decals like this on. He grabbed Denatured Alcohol. Jordan is our absolute, he's like one of our best friends, and he does such a fantastic job at doing this. If you guys are in the area and you want cool decals installed, we'll give him a plug, because reach out to him. We'll leave his stuff down below. But he got that installed, and the reason that we chose the Invasion Star, so the Invasion Star was done shortly after 1943 when the Allied troops started to invade foreign lands. So what was happening is that the smaller star that was put on from the factory was not as easily distinguishable from the air or also from different ground troops at elevations. Meaning that if you were a pilot flying over and looking at the proper location to bomb, you might have saw a small star and mistaken it for an enemy forces logo, which not too good when you're flying over. The second reason is that the Invasion Star would have been synonymous with 1945 and kind of the end of the war, and we're 80 years later. The third reason is that it was just bigger. We are working with a bigger vehicle, and we needed to kind of fill that space a little bit more. These original Willys MBs are quite small, and we wanted to fill that hood and really give it an imposing look. A lot of people have put these on their Jeeps. We've seen them on different editions. The Oscar Mike gets a small one kind of off-centered on there. Ours had to be perfectly centered, and it was the exact look that we were going for, but that was the first decal we installed, and it turned out great. The second set of decals we installed were arguably probably the second most important on the hood there. So we installed the both side hood decals. That was the second little bit. Kind of the biggest thing when we were looking at some of these photos as far as the placement of the side marker, as far as like what the unit would be, we're trying to figure out whether or not we should line it up like in the center of the hood from the front of the hood, or center it in between the hood latch and the back of the hood. So this side is centered in the hood, and I think it looks a lot better. The other side, walk over here, this is centered in between this hood latch here and the back. So a little bit of a difference there, but I do think it looks better on that other side. Now the numbers we chose to 20, the beginning of these, they always started 20. It stands for reconnaissance. The early Willys would have had a W here. We didn't put the W, we put the 20. And then normally this was like the build, I think it was almost like a VIN or a build number, but we just did 41 2025 because it's our 41 build and it's a 2025 Wrangler and then USA at the top. So that's kind of what we went for on this, just to let you guys know what we were thinking on that. But yeah, we're going to line it up center of the hood, and Jordan agrees with it. So I think that's the way it's going to go. There were a ton of suggestions. Hey guys, put DRC in there, put some different letters, and yeah, that would have been fantastic for branding on the side. Put DRC in there, in that font right on the side. But we tried to keep it more original. There were some suggestions of grabbing the VIN because that was actually the production number of the GPW as it rolled out, or the MB. In ours, we just wanted to play a little bit with those numbers, and we made it 41 2025. So this is a 41 build in the year 2025, and that's what we chose to put them on there. So it's 2041 2025. The numbers all fit, they work. Yeah, it's not the production number or the VIN of the Jeep, but it's a little bit better than having letters on the side. The only letter we didn't put was the S on the end, which stands for suppressed, for vehicles that would have been carrying radio equipment, which I did explain a little bit in the install process if we caught that on camera. But yeah, two really cool decals on the side there. They fit very nicely. We did get them, I think I want to say the 3-inch decals. You could either get them in 2-inch or 3-inch. We have a lot more room to work with, so we got them in 3-inch. Jordan stacked them perfectly there and got them applied. So the 4th and the 5th decals, that's where this Jeep starts to come into distinguishing what it's for and what unit it would have been part of. And with this, the beginning part of it started with a lot of research. So I am sitting here staring at an enlisted record and report of honorable discharge. Now this is from my great uncle who served in World War II. I did not have a chance to meet him. My dad did. Obviously, it was my grandmother's brother, so she was very close with him, but he did not talk much, if not at all, about his service during World War II. All we heard was just little bits and rumors and little tiny stories that my dad told me over the years, but not really much. So what I wanted to do is kind of do some research into him. So it's my family member here, and it's kind of something that meant a little bit more because I didn't know much about what he did, how he served, and what it really meant to us as a family. Now, I do come from a military family. My dad served, my grandpa, my grandma were both Air Force veterans, and a long line of a lot of folks in our family have served, and this is kind of to honor him. So it would be my great uncle Robert. He served as part of the medical detachment in the 157th Infantry Regiment, 45th Division. Now I hope the red and white start to make a little bit more sense on the fender vents. As you're looking at these decals, he was part of the 157th Infantry and the 45th Division. So that's what those numbers on the left-hand side, or I should say right-hand side of the Jeep, but left-hand side of the front bumper. That's what those mean. So that's based off of him. You know, that would have been what would have been on a Jeep that he would have driven. And he was part of the medical detachment as well. So that was a detachment that would have been attached to the regiment or to the division, and he would have helped kind of wherever he needed to be. So this was pretty crazy for me. I don't know if he was in Med 4 or what unit of the Jeep it would have been, but I chose 4 just because there was something in one of the stories my grandmother told me a long time ago, but I put the Med 4 on there. Now, his date of service, he enlisted in service September 13th of 1943. I got out in 1946. He landed in Italy and basically fought all the way through. So the story goes that, you know, he earned his Rome Arno, Southern France, and Rhineland battles and campaign badges, got a Good Conduct Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Theater ribbon, and a World War II victory ribbon. So he really, from what my grandmother says, he was involved in a lot and just didn't talk about it. Being a medic in World War II, I can only imagine the absolute horrors that they witnessed. I did research this unit, this regiment, and from what they said, they were basically fighting from the moment they landed in Italy. So it was a non-stop fight. The second rumor is that because he was a Technician 5, he actually drove for Patton a little bit. So that is a rumor, and I don't know if it can ever be proven because, you know, everyone has kind of passed on. But it's really cool to read all this stuff. And, you know, I didn't get to see any of this just because I was too young. He had passed before I was born. But to see all the Army of the United States, the honorable mentions here, it's pretty meaningful to me. And it just, I don't know. That's what these decals mean up front. So But yeah, that's a bit of history on what those meant today. So kind of really proud of being able to have that on there, honor all these folks, and just be able to move forward like that. I just think it's a really cool little touch, you know, especially it drives home with myself, my family, and that's what this whole build is about, is honoring those folks and honoring everyone that serves. So I hope you guys can appreciate that portion. It seems like the last video, everyone said some really cool stuff. They said you know, the one comment said a lot of these guys are probably looking down, honored that we're keeping this up. So yeah, the front bumpers though, yeah, Jordan got them on perfectly. One tidbit, you probably don't want to do this as quick as we did. We installed the paint and got it all painted on there and then did it like a day or two afterwards. You really want to let the paint cure a little bit, because the paint that we used is that hard, it's that rigid, that Jordan said some of the chemical properties actually release like a ceramic portion to it, and the decals didn't want to stick on the bumpers. I mean, he fought to get them on. Luckily, he's an expert and was using the heat guns, using some other tips and tricks, and got them to stick, got them to really dig in a little bit. But in the future, if we do have to repaint them, we can add on some stencils, or maybe we'll spray it ourselves. But yeah, a little tidbit, if you use this kind of paint, or if you're looking to put decals on a fresh vehicle or a freshly painted surface, just let it cure for about 2 or 3 weeks. That's the best bet. So the last two that we installed were basically very similar to the front. On the back bumper of the Willys MB, there would have been 2 decals as well, just denoting what unit it was in and then also what vehicle it was in. So that was basically the same from the front to the back. The only difference is that they are in a smaller font, a smaller text, and they originally would have been installed on bumperettes. Now, we were gonna do bumperettes on this Jeep. I actually had bumperettes from a reproduction company that made them at a 1/4 inch in the cart, and we were gonna add them onto the vehicle. However, after the design and everything we went for, we didn't add those on. I think it would have looked cool, but I don't know if it would have looked like too much. And we are trying to blend a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new, and I think there is a weird mix that you don't want to cross. So on the back there, yeah, we got them on the left-hand side and on the right. Little bit that it kind of stank because we had the tire carrier that fell over on the right, but you can still see the med is on top, 4 is on the bottom if you look at it from the rear. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is that we weren't able to install the bumper stars. In the back, we have a license plate in the center, and then in the front, we have a winch fair lead. Maybe in the future on the front, we could probably put one behind the fair lead and you would just see a little bit of the star, but I don't know how far you want to push it. I think when you look at the Jeep and what we go see today and what we're going to go out and check out, you get the entire gist of it, and we don't really need a ton more decals. But let's go out. We took the top almost off. We took the doors off. Let's go check out the Jeep, and let's show you how these look. Well, guys, here it is. We have got the top and doors fully removed on this Jeep. Well, I shouldn't say fully. The tops just flip back, but it is still chilly here in PA. We wanted to get a good view of what this thing looked like with all the decals added and then almost in its final or truest form. Man, we are just thrilled with the way that this Jeep is turning out. I think I've said that about 1,000,000 times, but all the decals here with the doors and top folded back just make this Jeep look that much more special. Now, we do have a couple more decals. We actually have a bunch of decals still in the bag that we were debating putting on. Where do we put them? Where would we set them? I think there is a point of this where we could go overkill with the decals, and it would start to be just decals everywhere on the thing. Now, a lot of these old school Jeeps, when they were used in war, when they were in World War II, they would have just had spray painted decals, different things put on them that they needed. But with ours, I think this is going to be pretty dang close to what the final version looks like as far as the decals and the exterior looks. There is always time for improvement. There's always room for suggestions. A lot of people were talking about the Pioneer rack. A lot of people were talking about axes, shovel mounts, this, that, and the other. We've got some creative ideas with some of that, and that will come as the future goes. But yeah, I'm very happy with the way that this looks right now, and I don't think that we're going to be changing it up too much. The interior is another topic because we've got a lot of boxes in there and a lot of plans for that to really turn that into a custom style inside of the Jeep. But you guys are going to have to stay tuned and make sure that you're hitting the subscribe button if you guys enjoy this content. I know a lot of people say with these videos they can't wait to tune in every week for this 41 build, and we already just slated that for Daytona and for Tennessee, this Jeep will be in the Distinction Applied booth. So if you guys want to check this thing out in person, it will be there in person all the days of the show. So be sure to come by and check this Jeep out if you're attending those, and come say hi to us because we will be at those shows as well as many others, but those are the two major ones. Let us know what you guys think in the comment about the decals. I really hope you have been enjoying this build. This has probably been one of our funnest builds. I know my Jeep is sitting right over there. Ryan's is over in the driveway, and they're crazy and they're cool, but this thing just holds such a different aspect and so much history and heritage to it that we are just extremely honored to be able to bring this to you guys on the channel. From me in front of the camera and from Ryan filming back there, we want you to get out there and earn yours.